How would you like to make your first million? And today we have Dennis Meador, DM, with us. And Dennis has been an entrepreneur since he was a teenager. Wow. Building businesses in everything from shoveling snow to SEO before finding his feet helping attorneys share their voices. He's a long communicator, and from his years as a pastor to his decades in marketing. DM believe the best ideas don't come from selling, they come from conversation. Wow, that's really powerful. So, Dennis, tell us, what are the 5 steps you recommend entrepreneurs in order to make the first million?
Welcome to Unstoppable Podcast with Harry Sardinas, inspiring conversations with influential millionaires, investors, thought leaders, entrepreneurs who are making a massive difference with their innovative products and services, and sharing the challenges and wisdom of how they sold their first million.
I think number one, and I think this should always be number one, when I've taken a new product to market, I've sold the first 100, the million, the first 100 clients, the first $1 million, whatever. I think that when you take something to market, you need to be the one to prove its efficacy in the marketplace. Because number two, ideas are worthless without execution. A lot of people think I've got $1 million idea. There is no such thing as $1 million idea, $1 billion idea, or a 50-cent idea, because ideas are just things in our brain that have gone nowhere and done nothing. So understand that ideas are worthless without execution behind them. Number one, be ready to take it to market yourself. Number two, understand that execution is infinitely more important than the idea itself. Number three is, as you grow, be ready to delegate. A lot of people get themselves to that $150,000, $200,000 mark in their business, and they don't want to pay anybody, because if I hire 3 people now, instead of making $200,000, I'm going to make $50,000. I don't want to make $50,000. I want to make $200,000, so they never get to that $1 million. So number three is be ready to delegate, because when you're ready to delegate, then that is when the acceleration happens. And number four is start to get into your own strengths as you grow. Right in the beginning, you're selling, you're taking it to market. Now, as you're growing, you can adjust because your boots on the ground. I talked to my clients for the first year, every client that I sold, and then I would go back and visit with them as we were growing out our CS department and things. And I learned what they liked, what they didn't like. I made adjustments, and we grew some more. So you have to be willing to adjust your vision as you're going. And then lastly, understand that if you're looking to do a million, you really need to be thinking you're going to do 1.5 million, because I always fail forward. And failing forward is the best thing you can do in business, because when you tell yourself, I need to do 2 million, I need to do 2 million, I need to do 2 million, and you fail at 1.2 million, you're 10 times better than the guy who said, I need to do 1 million and failed at 750. So always extend your goals well beyond what you really think you want to do, because you're better to fall forward and still be excited about the results than fall short of the thing you had to do because that's all you were staring at. When you look beyond the goal, chances are you will surpass the goal more often than not.
What's the story, Dennis? Why you decided to become an entrepreneur? Tell your story.
You know, it boils to the fact that I was a kid that was from a poor socio situation. At 8, 9, 10 years old, I had to figure out how to make money to feed myself, to feed my sister, sometimes to feed my mom as well. I had to figure out how to take care of myself, to put decent clothes on my back, to put decent clothes on my sister's back. And so for me, making money was just like, it was just this thing that no one told me to do it. No one told me how to do it. I just knew it needed to be done. So I figured it out. Then at 14 is when I kind of started my first business. And that's when we took and basically snow shoveling, raking leaves, mowing lawns, paper routes. And I would get the jobs. And then I had a stepbrother and his friends, they would do the jobs. So I'd get the job, they'd do the job. I kept half the money, they got half the money. And they would say, well, I'm the one who had to mow the lawn. And I said, well, then you go get your own clients. You go knock on, 22 doors to get a lawn mowed. You go get told no 17 times. You go get told maybe 3 times and go back 4 or 5 times and still get maybes about it because they tell you no so that you can get that one yes so you can make money. So I started there at 14 and got into marketing at 18. In my early 20s, started my own business, and I've been an entrepreneur since then. There's probably two main reasons why I like being an entrepreneur. One, I like deciding my own fate. I don't, I've been in a position a couple times in my career where I sat across from somebody hoping that they would give me a raise. And in my heart, I said, never, never, never again. I'm going to sit across from somebody and beg them for an extra couple dollars an hour or extra few $100s a month or an extra few $1,000s a year. Not going to do it. So I like that freedom,
Better do it
but I
myself.
also
Yeah.
like, yeah, is being an entrepreneur for me allows me to cultivate my own lifestyle. I'm not locked in. Like my business is based out of Austin, Texas. I live in Belize. I travel extensively. Just came off of a
Oh
one
wow, you
week
live in
sailboat.
Belize, amazing.
Yeah, so I mean, and pluses and minuses to anywhere, but like I live in Belize. Just last week, we took a catamaran and did like a 6 day back and forth through the little keys down south, and every day food and in the water and learning how to sail and all that stuff. Those aren't things I had options for when I only had 5 vacation days a year because I could take my laptop, I could take my iPhone, my phone or whatever, and I could still run my business. So it gives me options. So freedom and options are why I decided to be an entrepreneur a long time ago. And I'll throw this one in. It was a necessity. Like I didn't know what an entrepreneur was at 8, 10, 14 years old, but I knew I needed money and I knew people weren't just handing it out. I had to do something to get it. I had to sell candy bars that, buy them for 50 cents, sell them for $1. I had to, get these jobs. I had to, whatever I had to do to be able to take care of myself and take care of my sister and family.
Yeah. And the end, it's most of us, and in this podcast, we already interview over 500 millionaires. Most of us become an entrepreneur out of necessity, of a mix of necessity and accident, right? I remember my first business in London in property. I was working as a bartender over there, and they would pay me, I think it was 505 per hour or 575. Don't remember, telling you 18 years ago. And every
Yeah.
time that my pay slip is coming, I'm seeing 65, 70% almost in rent. And I'm thinking, if I'm just working to pay this rent thing. So
Yeah.
if I do this overhead, I'm working Monday to Sunday and still and every end of the month. So then I started. We went there and then we rent a house. Okay, I rent a house and then we rent the room separately. And then with that money, I was actually free in the living room, right in London. I was in London.
Mm-hmm.
But guess what happened? Next month the check comes. I have £600, £650 extra that I didn't have. And
Yeah.
I'm like, wow, I'm rich. So I went to, just because I did this operation and I did this mini business, yeah. Now I have. Then we can take in houses and houses. Well, we managed to sell 5 million. But my question to you is that one, okay? And I want to come back to your early times with you and your colleagues, okay? Because people, I work with a lot of founders. A lot of people listen to this podcast because they want to make the first million, okay? But this is what I think, what I hear, right? People don't take sales and marketing seriously. Exactly. What you said, right? Oh, why we just have to do all the work and all you do is find the clients. And then you hear startups that doesn't have any single client saying, well, if you find me a client, pay you 10%, pay you
Yeah.
15%. and and they don't understand to get to the first million is a marketing and sales exercise, branding.
Mm-hmm.
That without the marketing person, especially in the first million, and the sales person, you have nothing. Okay. So tell me, Dennis, what is your advice? You're a serial entrepreneur, you know very well what I'm talking about. What is your message for entrepreneurs out there that they don't necessarily knows about sales, marketing, and branding? However, By the way, your brand is amazing. I love it. Yeah, I love it.
Thank you.
Really, really, really good. So um, don't take this seriously, okay? And they think, no, 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 this is not. And all companies out there, that's the other thing. All companies out there, if you see Amazon, if you see all these big companies, they pay only 10% or 20% marketing fee. They don't pay more. Yeah, but the company, they don't depend on the client anymore. It's not the
Right.
same thing when you started at the beginning. So then, what's your view? What's your message? Give me realistic checks on people that have an startup. You did have an startup. You were finding the clients, and then your relatives were doing the job. Yeah, I think that you were
Hmm.
so generous with them 50-50, because without you, they don't have nothing, right? If they cannot get the clients, so you and you could do the job yourself if you if
I
you
could
know
have.
that you didn't want to, but if you can do that, right? The most difficult part. So, what's your message for entrepreneurs, founders that don't understand the value of sales, marketing, and branding, especially when you are starting the business?
Well, I mean, to that person, I would say, where's your value? I'm of the opinion. I think if you're familiar with the phrase, like I think it's attributed to Darwin, but you can't judge a fish's intelligence by its ability to climb a tree. And so you have this person who creates this product, this SaaS, they code it out, they come up with whatever it is, this system, this, service and this way of delivering the service. And to say that the skill set that you have is of greater value than another skill set, to me is pretty disingenuous. I think that it creates sort of a hierarchical sort of way of thinking. And I you talk about Amazon, yeah, they only pay 10 to 20%. How much of Amazon's how much of their own money, though, are they spending to get people to Amazon?
Absolutely. And how much
The
they pay at the
most
beginning? At the beginning.
exactly. Exactly. So establishing a brand, establishing something that people hold an affinity to is it's one of those things that it's part skill and it's part art. The same thing with sales. It's part skill and it's part, or science and part art. And I think a lot of people don't understand that. They think it's pure science. And, well, I'm smart. If I wanted to sell, I really could. Okay, buddy. Okay, lady. Go right ahead. Show me what you can do. Show me how great of a salesperson you are. And that's typically been my approach. I tell people, like, I'm not going to try to convince you of what's obvious. Like, if you're going to stare up at the sky and tell me it's, that it's purple and we see that it's blue, it's not sunset, and you're going to say that whole sky is purple, dark, dark purple, I'm going to look at you and go, okay, and I'm going to walk on. Then I'm going to find somebody who's going to go, look at that beautiful blue sky, and I'm going to say, hey, let's work together. So I think that a lot of people, and here's one thing I talked a lot about, a lot of people don't start businesses. They start jobs for themselves so that they don't have to answer to anybody. And so the person that you're talking about, to me, sounds like they're trying to create their own job, not a company and a business, an organism that has its own set of, ethics. It has its own set of energy. It has its own set of rules. It has it's its own entity and being in and of itself. And that's how the government of the United States recognizes it. And so if you're going to create something, don't just make a carbon copy of your personal opinions, your personal biases, your personal fears, and then call it a company. All you've done is just recreated yourself in company form, and it's only going to go so far. So I think a lot of business owners, they're so big about make my first million, make this, make that. It's like, no, first and foremost, when you start a business, what are you starting? Are you starting a job that's just for you so you don't have to have a boss? Are you starting a business that you really want to create something and, maybe do a few $1,000,000 and have a few people that you support? Or are you trying to create a company that is its own entity? It lives, it breathes. Like I am in the midst right now of transitioning from, I didn't start it as a job. I definitely started it as a business, but it's very quickly become a company. I'm less than 2 years into this. I've got a few hundred clients. I've got almost 70 people on the team. And we're doing, we did 7 figures our first
Wow.
year. We're going to probably
Wow.
do 80% above what we did first year into second year. And
Very
being a
impressive.
part of something where you see something that is a business becoming a company is something that's pretty exciting to me. But I think that's the first thing people need to determine. They look at a dollar amount and it's like, wait a minute. Don't look at a dollar amount and don't value what you bring to the company above everybody else. And I think that that is one of the things that holds people back from hitting that million. Well, I'm the one who had the idea. Okay, who's going to execute it? Who's going to sell it?
Mm-hmm.
They bring
Mm-hmm.
just as much value to the process
Mm-hmm.
as the idea itself.
I couldn't agree more, Dennis. I think that, well, the five step, why 90% of startups on the company fail in the first 2 years is, I think, exactly because of this concept that you described, right? Right. And the founder create the company, finding the principle of company, they recreate a job for themselves in the form of a company. And I saw so many founders that I listen to them sometimes regarding to sales and marketing. And when you talk to them, I said, look, we need to increase sales and marketing, or we have to go out and sell the product. And the founder said, no, this is not my job. And I'm looking at them and said, what do you mean this is not your job? Everything is your job. This
Yeah.
is the company. What do you think that this is? This is you're not corporate that you have a job, and if somebody come to tell you do something, you say this is not my job. So most of them also move from corporate and they want to
There's,
do
yeah,
do
they have
business.
that mind
Now
frame.
they continue with that behavior without understanding that the dynamics are completely different, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I'm the same way. Like, listen, I eat,
How
breathe,
about you,
survive.
then? You tell me what's your message for people in corporate that want to transition to entrepreneur? Because a lot of people listening this podcast, they are see, oh, I wish that I have the courage of Dennis. Look at him. He has his own company. He's selling in Belize. He has his own future. I'm here in the corporate. I would love to have my own company and do the same. So tell us what is the good, the bad, and the ugly of this transition from corporate to entrepreneur, and if it's for
Well, I
everybody.
don't have a lot of corporate, I've done some corporate stints. I have a couple of corporate stints because of just life transitions, but here's what I will say. Here's what I've noticed people that were corporate trying to start a company. You need to practice the discipline of not having a safety net because usually that's the very thing that keeps them from jumping out is, well, I got this base, it's 120,000 a year, and then you can't count my insurance and my matching on my 1K. That's like almost $200,000 a year. And I mean, I got to replace that before I even think about doing anything. You're not going to do anything. You need because the risk reward, it's like anything else, right? If I invest into high risk, I expect a high reward from it. If it was safe, then it wouldn't have a high reward. And so what happens is people want the reward without any of the risk. And like, let me give you an example. So I had a business partnership. So I was corporate for 4 years, really because my kids were teenagers. Then 2018, stepped away from that. I could tell that corporate company just I didn't want to be there anymore, and I stepped into a sort of a partnership agreement with the guy. Basically said, listen, you're doing under $1 million a year, you got this SEO company for lawyers, I could take you 4 or 5 million pretty easy. Give me 5 years. If we're not doing at least 3 million, then or whatever, give me a third of the company or you can buy me out. And he's like, okay. So 5 years later, we come to the end of the contract. He chooses the buyout. We're doing 5 million. We've gone from 78 clients to over 300 clients, from less than $1 million to over 5 million. But he had somebody in his ear telling him, well, that guy built the sales processes and he built everything out. You don't need him anymore. I was like, okay, that's fine. 5 months away from my wedding, I had to look at my now wife and say, hey, that money I was making that allowed us to move to this island and just kind of, the thing I was doing and how things were going great, that's gone. So was there a temptation to just like get on and find like a remote job closing where I K base and da 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 da? But my wife looked at me and said, I trust you. And I was like, that's all I needed. And within a month, I had everything put in place for the concept. We were building the background. We launched May 1st. And like I said, here we are almost 2 years later. And so that was a huge risk. 5 months from my wedding, if I didn't make another dime, that wasn't going to be a very pleasant wedding if it happened at all. Right? So there's a lot of risk. And most entrepreneurs have a tolerance for risk that is so much greater than people who want to be entrepreneurs. And I call them wantrepreneurs, right? They love the idea. It's like, listen, I'd love to be an NBA player. I'd love to be 6'8", and I'd love to be, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years younger. Okay, 20 years younger. And, dunk threes from half court and everything else those guys do. I'd love to do that. I want to do that, but it's not a reality for me. And I think some people idealize entrepreneurship because they say, oh, you went on a boat. But you know what they don't see? They don't see me on that boat in my cabin and dealing with, oh, this customer said this, here's how we're going to handle it, taking a call. They don't deal with that. They don't deal with, I was 3 months into my company. All of a sudden, Stripe said, oh, you're a marketing agency? We didn't realize that. We're freezing your account. And I had about 50K that was supposed to hit in the next couple of days to cover my payroll. They
Wow.
don't see those sort of things. What they
Wow.
see is they see the sailboats, not the Stripe stop, right? And so there's always risk and reward with entrepreneurship. And so I would say to people who are sitting in a safe place, I would say you need to build up your tolerance for risk. Because until you have that tolerance for risk, you're going to dip your toe. Well, I'll try 2 hours a week to do that. And if it doesn't take off and make me $1 million in 3 days, then I probably am not going to do it. No, like, are you going to jump out with no net, no security, and you're just going to say, come hell or high water, if I have to work 90 hours a week, I'll do it. I'll do what I have to do to make this thing happen. And that's most entrepreneurs. When you started, whatever you started, like you said, with the property stuff in London, you, man, what am I going to do? I can't just work to make nothing. Let me try this. You jumped out. When you jumped out, did anybody put a bunch of money in your account and say, hey, Harry, don't worry about it. If this fails, you're still going to be good? No one did
I
that
need
for
to
me.
borrow the money from the bank.
Yeah, exactly.
3,000 they
But
gave me, and I'm thinking if I lose this money, it would take me 10 years to pay because I was making so little.
exactly. So there was a risk, and it came with
Huge.
that great reward. And that reward was that 650 that you didn't have access to before. And that's
Mhm.
most entrepreneurs. We have learned to build the muscle of risk. We have learned to walk the tightrope, if you will, with no net underneath. We have learned that it's much better to make zero week and $25,000 next week than 1,000 this week and 1,000 next week. But most people would rather have 1,000 this week and 1,000 next week than 0 and 25,000. And I speak
Yeah.
that from personal experience.
Benny, so then the other thing, out of the 500 millionaires we interview here, everybody, I haven't find anybody yet that come to this podcast, multimillionaire, that tell me, Harley, I hate marketing, I hate sales, I don't like it. So every millionaire that come here, they love marketing, they love sales, they love branding, they embrace it, they're passionate about. Every time that I ask that question,
Yeah.
I can see the eyes shine. Like, Harry, you're not gonna believe how I find my first client and the marketing strategy and how I sell it. And I increased my prices and I did that, and they are excited about, right? On the other hand, you go out there and when you say, well, I specialize in marketing branding, they say, oh, that's another salesperson. Well, I like sales and everything. And then we see the reality that 90% of companies are failing in the first two years. So what is your exactly what stereotype out there? Oh, this is just a salesman. Oh, this is just a marketing guy. Oh, this is just an SEO. They are just
I
a
think
salesperson.
that,
It's just. I hate that a lot.
yeah,
Without the sales, nothing happens in society. If we don't
nothing
sell, the
happens
economy
until
doesn't
something gets
move.
sold.
Exactly, nothing moves. So, what is your opinion about this, or why do you think that people dismiss
Well,
something
I think,
as
I
important in
think,
the core of the companies?
I think there's a couple reasons. One is societal stereotypes. And I think it's, unfortunately, for some of us, it's a bit earned, right? Now, hopefully not for myself. Here's what I teach my team, what I've always said: good salespeople lie, the best ones don't have to. I only want the best, right? So I think that when we look at sales as the art of lying, then it is easy to dismiss it. But when the way I look at sales and marketing is, it is the art of properly framing things in a way in which they can be understood and accepted. So that is what sales, that is what marketing is to me. It's not taking something that isn't and making it something that is. It's learning what something is and making it obvious and how it benefits. And so I would say to those people who think that way, number one, get over yourself. Like, honestly, if you think you're too good to sell, then you just sit in an office and do whatever you're going to do. You're going to be replaced anyway by something sometime soon. So, like, for me, I work with lawyers, right? Now, lawyers, they also have a bit of a reputation,
Wow, they
right?
make a lot of money per hour, right?
Well, they make good money, but, I mean, some people say lawyers are
If they don't
synonymous with
sell, they have
liars.
nothing, right?
But they say they're synonymous with liars, right? Like kind of the American stereotype is that a lawyer is known for like stretching the truth and lying, blah blah blah. That's the stereotype. And so I'll have her be dismissive to me, and I'll say, hold up, this is the pot calling the kettle black. There are good actors and bad actors in your industry. Do you want me to compare you to every lying, thieving, conniving lawyer in history? Or do you want me to compare you to every successful businessman that was a lawyer that did well? And I demand and feel like it's not unfair to say, hey, look at what I'm doing. I'm being honest about it. I'm delivering what I say. I'm not, if I am providing an honest service, I don't care what it is. If the honest service is a communication style of a service, it still deserves its merit. It still deserves its place. So for people that say, kind of have that sort of like they look down on people that sell, I mean, it's like one time I said something to somebody and he was a lawyer and he was just like, "Oh, you're a scumbag. You sell." This has been years ago, and I said something about how much money I made, and he said, "Well, prostitutes make a lot of money. That doesn't make what they do honorable, blah, blah, blah," right? And I was like, true.
Oh, wow. Wow.
So like money
The
wasn't
guy
the only
was
factor. I was
tough.
like, I mean,
Yeah.
lawyers are tough people. And I just simply said to him, that is correct, but what I'm doing isn't illegal. And so, number one. Number two, I do it in a way where it is not immoral or unethical. So, like a scientist can be unethical and immoral and twist the
Mm-hmm,
facts and twist
mm-hmm,
he or she might have all the world.
mm-hmm.
So, the position itself is not indicative of its moral compass. It's the individual in the position. How many business owners that that are not nice, steal, rob? I
Yeah.
mean, I've heard time and time again, the rich people are the ones who hardly pay their bills. Like, oh, that guy you don't want. And, I live on a small island. People get reputations. I'd be like, oh, man, that guy's going, oh, yeah, you don't want to mess with. Well, yeah, well, he'll get you in a business deal. You'll kind of he's a little shisty. So, like, I think bad actors in every industry.
It
And
just
it's whether
amplify who you are. If you are a good
yeah,
person and good values, your business will amplify who you are. But if you have different values, then it happening in all industries. I think that
exactly.
the other thing then is we find out in the podcast that serial entrepreneurs, those entrepreneurs that have more than one company, right? They open marketing and sales division. They open that company. They realize that okay, because what we have is first time founders. They are in love with the product. They are a product person. They put all the time, money, and energy in the product. They want to do the best product that can save the world, and this is what they put all the effort. That's why when after they run out of money and they cannot sell it, then they want to bring sales and marketing person to the team, and they don't even have resources to set that
Yeah.
elephant that they created, right? But after that experience of first time founder, then we have second time founders that now they understand that it's more important to go out there and to ask to create the prototype and to ask the people out there if they like it, what form they like the product, how much they're willing to pay for. And after they have
Hmm.
all that information and they have some pre-orders, they come back and then they hire the tech team and they created the
Yep.
product. And those ones, they tell the story again and again in this podcast. Are the the most of the tech millionaires that they have come here, they're not even software developers. They have more
Yeah.
branding, sales, and marketing because that's how they go to the first million, right? They are, and those ones that they're software developers, they come to a podcast and they spend the whole day, the whole podcast talking about sales, marketing, and man. I thought that you were a programmer because that is all about that. So, um, in your experience, okay, obviously you are more than second time founder in your own business. How what is the priority that you give to that part of business, especially like for example after you now 5 months ago before you went, you have to again it becomes an startup again from zero. So here
I
you
mean,
are, yeah.
well, like I said, I sold my first 100 clients. I took it to market.
Wow,
I listened to what they said. I listened to what they like, what they didn't like. I listened to the
very
little
good.
huh or and I listened. After 9 months of my product, I released my product as LPN
Oh
2.0.
wow.
So we started off with, you got your podcast, you got 3 videos
Eh,
with it, and a page of content. Well, here we are. Here we were like 9 months later. We 10x the content, 30 pieces of content. We created
wow.
2 to 3 pages of website content, but then social media content. We posted, and I was like, this isn't about a podcast. This is about creating an ecosystem. Now here we are. We
Hmm.
just relaunched at the beginning of this year Echo, where we're doing a podcast matching service, and we have 2 streaming television channels downloaded on Roku, on all of that, where you like a Netflix. So we have
Hmm.
2 streaming channels. And we just keep growing and seeing the need and meeting the need. And so the only way that can happen is for you to actually be in there listening to people. Because if I just stood up here on my podium and was just like, I'm the business owner, I don't have to do any of that, I would never know the cachet or the need, because we had people and they were doing podcasts, but then their podcasts, no one was watching them. They weren't being distributed. They weren't being marketed. And I was like, okay, we were giving them the marketing stuff. And the Lord was like, what do you want me to do with this? And so then we started doing, like, okay, well, we can't just post once a week for our clients. Like, they don't have anything else. Like, they're not even posting anything on social media. So I was like, well, let's just break up and make something where if they do 1 show a month, they've got 30 days of marketing. If they do 2 shows a month, they got 2 posts a day. 4 shows, they got 3 posts a day. Because I learned that they weren't going to do it themselves. So if their show that we produced that they paid us for was going to be successful, for the most part, it wasn't going to be successful because they marketed it and they, branded it out there. I had to be the one to also go and push it and algorithm and put it in social media and do all this stuff for them. It's almost just like, so now we're just like, hey, this is turnkey. You show up, talk for 30 minutes. We got a month's worth of marketing. That's all you got to do. We take care of everything else. Why? It wasn't because that's what I wanted to do to start off. I would have loved to have handed them a video for X amount of money and then stepped back and said, okay, go have fun. But what I learned was they weren't having fun with it. They were just like, what do I do now? So we took over all of that and we keep progressing. How can we help more? How can we bring more people to expose them? How can we make them look better? How can we give them more authority? Because that's really what we're trying to do, is help our clients have authority in their marketplace. So attorney number one, well, I've got a website. Attorney number two, I've got an audio podcast, a video podcast, a YouTube channel, a streaming television show on a couple of on a network that's downloaded through Roku and Amazon. You see the difference? Like, there's so much more authority with this other
Absolutely.
guy. So yeah, like for me, if you want to build a business, especially if it's a concept that's new, you're not just like taking roofing out there, right? But if you're doing something different, something new, something that needs to be explained, who better to explain it and encapsulate it and simplify it over time than the very person in whose head it was born? So that's why every company I've ever started, I went in and sold the product, wrote the scripts, created the sales processes, created the branding, created the marketing, created all of that. And then as we got bigger and better, I brought in professionals and they tweaked. And I'm just like, oh, I thought I did a good job, but oh, okay, I trust you. And it's always worked, right? But I've had that base, that ground of where I started, which is, hey, I'll do it. I'll figure it out. I'll make it work. I'll make it make sense. And then from there, I can build and build and build and build and bring in the kids we need.
And if people are in love with this conversation, how people can find you, how this process work?
You can go to my website, thelegalpodcastnetwork.com. We also have the authoritypodcastnetwork.com that we're in the process of launching, which I imagine will be here within the next week or two. So we're expanding just beyond the legal realm, and we're working with coaches, realtors, basically anybody who needs to use authority to separate themselves. Or LinkedIn is my playground. Dennis, Dennis, Meador, Meador. I'm sure it's in all the notes. That's where I like to go talk to people. People ask me questions from being on podcasts and things like that. And I love that. Like, I don't think I'm too good for that. I have people that help me with it, but when it comes to this stuff, they say, hey, you got a podcast question, or hey, you got a referral that wants to talk to you about something besides just, client profiles looking to maybe work with us. So those are my playgrounds. Check out our websites, or check me out on LinkedIn and the conversation there.
Thank you so much, Dennis, to join the podcast, and for all of you following really appreciate it. That was amazing. For all of you following the podcast, see you in our next episode of Unstoppable, how brave entrepreneurs like Dennis break that wall and achieve the first million. Bye for now.
Thank you.
Follow us for more interviews with world's most influential, audacious entrepreneurs that overcame challenges and adversity, providing you with the blueprint of how they sold their first million so you can grow your business exponentially.